Well, hello and welcome to Audionautic Deep Space Network, episode 35. This is our weekly music production, technology, and marketing podcast. And this week we're talking some new gear, like always it seems, streaming woes, thanks to Eon Lake's addition, and some ideas for the upcoming Bandcamp Friday, which, in case you don't know, Bandcamp Friday is this coming Friday. It's where all revenue goes directly to the artists. They waive their fee. It's pretty cool. My name is Sunwarper, and with me today is the audio wizard, Eon Lake. What's going on? There's a little context to that. We were talking about separating stems because the new mixer I bought recently for my new studio just didn't work. And I was telling him I had one before from the same company, and it just stopped being in stereo. Like, one of the outputs just stopped working, so I had to duplicate a left channel recording and then phase shift it to right and then do all this other stuff. And he was like, why don't you just separate the stems? I was like, oh. But anyways, how are you, Eon Lake?
I'm good, thanks. I'm good. Thanks for making me sound positive anyway. Yeah. It's been a quiet week for me, though. I haven't done a huge amount on the music front. I'm trying to do some mixing. And so I've got a tip of the week. If you're doing a song and you're using a lot of saturation or distortion, and like me, you like to produce a big wall of sound and then maybe sit on it with a compressor, don't record your saturation or your distortion, because you might have to dial it back a bit. Otherwise, you'll just get white out. Complete white out. So yeah, always leave yourself some room to back stuff off sometimes.
Good idea. Anything else you've been up
to? Probably. I forget.
Well, then we'll call it there. So then we'll switch over to our Audionautic co-pilot, Curtis. What's going on, my friend?
I'm all right, mate. It's been a busy week, but in a good way. So I can't really complain. Yeah, I've been making techno. Lots of techno this week.
Techno.
I started dabbling with it last week, just before the last show, and I've just kind of gone like just proper hyper ADHD, hyper focusing, just studying everything, the history, everything, how you make it, and all going through and just playing around with it basically. This hardware kind of taking a back seat, and I've just been kind of sitting making with the MIDI controller I've got here, and just making stuff with exploring new VSTs and stuff like that. It's it's good fun. It's good fun.
What VSTs are you using for your techno?
a lot of Yuhi. There's a couple of there's actually one, the Zoom set that we're going to be talking about later in the show. I've been using a lot of that. Primarily a lo-fi down tempo kind of synthesizer, but then I've just been kind of mangling it because that's the fun of it, really. And yeah, so a few bits and bobs. I think once I've got a bit more under my belt, maybe we'll do a little kind of this is kind of what I've been using kind of thing. We've been talking about doing it, nice, so we'll see. Yeah, so it's all fun. Why keep making the same? I've just finished Maroon, so why keep on making the same stuff when you could try something?
I've got several other things I want to do when I get a minute.
Yeah, exactly.
So very different.
Exactly. How about you, Sunwarper? What's going on in your world?
Well, it may be slightly apparent, but new studio progress is happening. I'm on my new desk. I can do this. I can do that. I've got the little synth next to me, the little MIDI keyboard from Arturia, the MIDI Lab, and then I've got a MIDI hub that's sending MIDI to the Prophet, and then the Prophet sends MIDI back in there. So if I want to use the Prophet as a MIDI keyboard, I can. If I want to use this to control the Prophet, this being, sorry, it's off camera, but the MIDI Lab, I can control the Prophet from the desk, or I can do stuff over there. It's really cool. And then I got the SP and the circuit up here. It's a little, I forget but like narrower. It's much longer than the old desk, but a lot narrower. And then I'm missing the other desk, so I'm still figuring out where to place everything. But it's really nice just having this more minimalist setup. That's just everything that I need is right there in front of me. And then beyond that, just I put up a live set explainer, like how I did my live set from, I think, 2 weeks ago now, over on my YouTube. So I talked about the 3 ways I use the SP and the circuit tracks together. And I had Hydro Fighter, and it was like, I can't believe you don't connect them via MIDI. I'm like, I want that organic, mistake of like hitting one at the wrong time or something. It just adds that little element when you're doing all sequences. But yeah, that's pretty much what I've been up to.
Yeah.
I can't believe you haven't sampled that desk yet, actually.
I know, actually, you know what? That didn't even cross my mind until just now.
It would be good for techno.
Yeah, it's going to Koala Sampler.
Send it over. Put it in the Koala Sampler. Send it over. I'll see what I can do.
Yeah. I should say really quickly, we are live. Everyone in the chat, what's going on? How are you? Thanks for joining us. And if you're watching this live, consider hitting the like and sharing it over on Twitter or anywhere. It helps a ton. And then if you're watching this back, either on YouTube or we have the new edited versions on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, leave a rating or hit a like on YouTube. It helps a ton, and we really appreciate it.
Yeah, we've been cutting up stuff from the actual show, making it a bit smaller into smaller clips, like just the certain singular topics that we talk about through the show. So if you want to keep an eye of what we do during the week, get a little bit tastes, that kind of thing, do all that stuff. And yes, most people in the chat, Bendu, Shady, you guys are our patrons, so thank you very much. Thank you for being here. This show is brought to you guys by our patrons. If you wanted to be a patron, consider going over to patreon.com/audionautic. Pledges start as little as $2. You get early access to stuff. For example, Binary Stars is already accessed for our patrons in visual form. The audio goes up this Saturday. Extra stuff, there's a community, Twitter group, that kind of thing. So yeah, come on down. We have a lot of fun. Always chatting some stuff.
Yeah, patreon.com/audionautic, and it should be in the description, but we did a new way of posting the live stream where it's scheduled and then we connect separately rather than going live right there. So I don't know if it's there, but if it isn't, afterwards I'll put it all there. And then after this episode ends, we'll have the next episode scheduled if you want to hit a notify me button or anything like that to know when the next one's going up.
Yeah, completely and utterly. So yeah, that is what's going on with us. Let us know what you've been doing. Always keen to see what you guys have been up to. Tell us what secrets have you unfurled for us today. Yeah, it'd be nice to see. But yeah, shall we look at what's going on in the news? We are 22 minutes past the hour.
Oh yeah, really quick though, I want to mention before we get to the end of the marketing, we're going to talk about Bandcamp and Bandcamp Friday and some ideas. And I'm just curious if anybody wants to share some of the things they've either tried that have worked well or haven't worked well, or things they're thinking about doing for Bandcamp Friday. Let us know.
Yes, completely and utterly. So yeah, let's move on to the news. We've got a lot, as ever. We've got a few new pieces of hardware, and we've got some VSTs coming through as well. Let's start with the new, what's coming out with Synclavier. Synclavier, sorry. What, Sunwarper, this is you, is it not?
Yes, it is. I didn't have a lot of time to check it out, but Synclavier is a really famous synth company from, I think, the 80s. They had that a lot of the sounds from those famous songs back then, and they've got this really cool, I think it's a wavetable synth. I've got some of the description here, just let me get to it. I was in the chat for a moment. Regen supports additive synthesis for control of 24 harmonics. We've now added subtractive synthesis to the synthesis engine, especially for Regen, allowing creation of supersaws, nice, PCM square waves, and noise generation. Or you can use samples for your carrier waveform, which is awesome. 255 Regen timbre presets, 700 samples of royalty-free factory content, additive waveform, subtractive waveform generator, and multi-sample patch list. And then there's a ton more. 4 USB ports for keyboards and other peripherals, plus 1 USB port for connection to DAW. And there's the 5-pin MIDI. That touchscreen looks really cool, too. It's massive. So there's tons more. I could keep going, but I feel like I've just been reading off and off. Better to just hear it.
Yeah,
is way smaller than a refrigerator, not cheap, but far less expensive. Additive synthesis, which can behave like a wavetable synth, subtractive synthesis, and sample playback, letting you design sounds with dozens of layers and
everything.
splits.
I mean, yeah, it's
combining
a magic box of
instances
sound.
Swiss
each
Army
form
knife
of
of
synthesis.
synth.
I mean, this
In this
looks
video,
right
I'll
up
take a
here.
look at what it can do, as well as
pause this so they don't talk over it. But this kind of thing seems to be straight up Eon Lake Street for sure for now.
It's got lots of lights on it. It makes funny noises.
Lots of twinkles, lots of lights.
I mean, that defines all of up our alleys. It's got lots of blinking lights and makes fun noises. Yep, it's sold.
But I think it'd be really good for drones. It certainly sounds like it. You can get some slow movement in some of those parameters, adding in the timbres and voices and so on. It looks like I could have a pleasant afternoon at the very least.
I mean,
I'll take a pair. Thanks.
I mean, it's another one of the tabletop boxes, which is becoming ever more trendy right now, for want of a better phrase. Starting with
is $2,500. So if you got 5,000, you can get a pair.
God,
Just wanted to throw that out there because I know Eon Lake's looking at a pair of them.
Yeah, I was just thinking that they were really expensive sample-based machines and everybody wanted to use them. Nothing's changed then.
I feel like, I mean, these days, who needs a mortgage? Who needs to have a lease on a car when you can just buy gear? I'm not sure that anyone else would agree with that. That might just be me.
Yeah, it might just be you.
Anyway, yeah, it'd be a really nice, interesting way to go. Another tabletop box. We'd like to know what you guys think. Very nice, very synthy. obviously, Synclavier. It's always nice to see them.
Once you've got a few full-size things, you've got, you've got your 88 keys or whatever you might need. You're not going to want another one, are you? Things that are small and actually you can fit some of them in your studio, and you can take a few of them, to play a gig and so on without too much trouble. It does start to be really appealing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that thing has 4 USB inputs, all kinds of stuff. I mean, you can use it as like a hub for things and MIDI. It's pretty stacked with what it's offering.
I mean, if you've got a box for single use, I don't know how you guys kind of do your setups and stuff, but like, for example, each one of my boxes, they do a certain job in the kind of the internal live set, so to speak. You'd have to have, where would this fit? I mean, like you mentioned drones, it might be a good drone machine somewhat, but what do you think?
I think general sound generation and pretty much anything, but using samples to make waveforms and things like that is pretty awesome for just making unique sounds and things like that. Is it worth $2,500 in that way? I mean, I think the synth is worth it. The price makes sense, I think, but would it be worth it for me? Probably not. I mean, I don't have that budget at the moment, and I don't really want to lose a kidney at this time. I got to save that for something else.
Yeah. Sell all your kidneys.
Yeah. What about you? Do you see any place in it for it in your setup, Curtis? I mean, if it was like $20, let's say.
As you were leaving the house.
just found it on the street. Just you found a tenner on the floor. So just someone's left it. I like the idea of it being in a similar fashion. I'd like to see how minute and granular you could go in terms of like LFOs with it, essentially, like a bit like a drone. I'm big on my drones, and I don't have a drone machine. The idea of it building some sort of like the FM synthesis, where you go from somewhere it's a bit noisy and a bit kind of like static, as opposed to something chord based or tonal, that might be quite interesting. I'm writing a noise album at the moment, and that, if I had $2,500, I'm sure I could find a use for it there somehow.
Yeah. That being said, though, I know there's what's it called, waveform, like sample waveforms and things like that are plugins that you could do a lot of that granular synthesis type stuff with, and all that. I mean, it's not that cool little box with the touchscreen and all that stuff, but it's there. And real quick, survey channels in the chat. How's it going, Matt?
Hey, Matt. Nice to see you. Yeah, that's what we need. Okay, what's this coming out of Boss? This is what else we've got as well. Keeping with the hardware before we go on to the software for now. Boss, the SL2, a brand new slicer coming through, Sunwarper.
Yeah, it's actually, I guess, a pseudo reissue. There was a bigger model a long time ago, and then this is this new one. And I think the easiest way to describe it is like a percussive tremolo. Give it a little play and we'll check it out.
Oh, that's nice.
But you can set the type of slicing it does.
Hi, I'm Don Carr, and this is the Boss SL2 Slicer.
I mean, I'm sure he's great, but we want the...
There was another video of someone that got it, and he was using a synth, and he made a white noise patch on the synth, right? And then using that, he created these really crazy hi-hat percussions. You can stop the video because it's dragging on, but because he's keeping that same tone. But I was hoping he'd change it up a little more. I didn't get to link that synth one, and I lost it. But it's got a bunch of different settings you can do in the rhythm that it creates of the slices. And like I was saying, that one guy with just white noise created these very plucky hi-hats, doing all these crazy percussion, like more than just 16th notes and things like that. And the one drawback that this guy was talking about was that it's tiny little knobs, and the knobs are, one is on the bottom, one is on the top for two of them. So it's like, he was saying you basically have to take a picture because there's no presets.
I mean, that's traditional, I suppose, in that sense. Like on most of the Boss pedals and that, like I've had the DD, was it DD3 at the moment?
Oh, the old school delay.
I've got the DD3 down.
Oh, I love that. One of my old bandmates still has mine. I'm like, oh man, I need that.
That's what you need, isn't it? And I mean, they are, you set presets, or you set them to a certain thing, then you hit record, and then you lose them for eternity. And like,
when you're moving it, it just moves slightly.
Yeah,
and you're like, the whole sound's wrong.
yeah. I mean, that's kind of. I suppose it's as far as modular as I'm going to get, because I mean, I can't afford modular for anything. But like, the delay pattern, for example, in Gin and Tonic, in episodes and solos, that I can't remember what that was. So like that was So we'll never hear that again. So yeah, we can.
You'll stumble upon it one day. Really quick in the chat, Survey Channel says he's working away. Hope all's good with you and everyone. Yeah, we're all doing great. Glad to hear it. Thanks for being here. Shady Ridge says it's totally cool. I know you're looking at some new pedals. Is this going up on your list by any chance? And then Hydro Fighter says, hey guys, yeah, how's it going? Steve, what's up?
I would like to see. What would you do? Okay, Eon Lake, obviously with two guitarists here, and Eon Lake, obviously bass and synthesizer based.
No, I'm going to say though, don't you?
Go on.
It's got a 1/4-inch jacks on it.
Yeah, that's the thing. Any pedal works.
Everything through that. What happened. I like. Yeah, I mean, I suppose with timings and whatnot, yeah, maybe not being able to save things is a bad thing, but I don't know. It depends if you can set them up individually. You get one right, and then add the second one and get that right. But yeah,
I encoders
and delay pedals and echo stuff at the moment because I'd like some hardware to take with me to play live. I've got my Zoom stomp box, but it's not the best in the world. So yeah, although I think I'd veer more towards an old school tape echo replica type thing.
Uh-huh.
I think you know the one I mean. But for that reason, to have that sort of tone to it. But it's kind of does what I do all the time with a gate and a MIDI channel to fire it off, to use as a trigger. So yeah, if you're concerned about losing your rhythms and not being able to recover it, I mean, these are things you can, again, if you can get your guitar to run through your computer, easy to do in software with a gate and a trigger on the side chain.
There's also Alligator on Reason that does exactly this. It chops it up in these percussive delay type ways. I'm sure there's other
motion by output is really good as well. I use it on synths a lot, on pads, to give them a bit of movement. And it does filtering as well as gating and so on, so it can give you all sorts of weird things. It's good for adding rhythm.
That's interesting. I mean, Sunwarper, did I hear right that, I mean, for the majority, when it comes to effects, VSTs on the guitar, you're soft and you go into the DAW?
It might actually be slightly visible now. All of that bottom row are pedals.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And I also have a pedal board behind all of those synth covers. So I have pedals. Do I use them? Not at the moment, but I'm going to have it set up soon. But I mean, I use a lot of the effects in the SP404 when I do guitar, because I send the guitar through that. It's got amp sim and a bunch of really cool effects. And I just like the VSTs because you can just recall it and you can alter it after recording. That's nice.
It is, yeah.
It stays with your project as well. It's pretty convenient.
Yeah, and you can save it as a patch for other things later.
Yeah, completely. I mean, there are obviously advantages to keeping it within the box.
Yeah, I will say, though, you do lose that tactile touch that I always talk about. Like, the difference between using a hardware synth and using a VST is having that ability to change things and it works. Now, yeah, some synths or MIDI keyboards like the MIDI Lab and things like that, you can connect those knobs to certain MIDI controls and things like that. It's very similar, but I still and maybe it's just in my head, but I feel like that analog connection just makes a difference.
Yeah, and it will still do what it does. It's not dependent on a particular OS version or a driver.
That's true, as you always say.
You with your drivers, yeah.
And in 10 years, it might still be doing it, where God knows what OS version you'll be on.
Yeah, and I think there's a new Mac OS, isn't there? That just came out, or is coming out?
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh,
so I'm sure that'll be a nightmare with all the third-party plugins not working with the new one. I know that was really bad with, was it Monterey, whatever the last one was? Yeah. Some companies took 6-8 months before they were compatible with it, because I think it was changing to work with the M1 chips from Apple and things like that. Yeah.
We'd like to know what you guys in the chat are thinking and watching back. in terms of your effects? Are you looking for hardware? I know Shady, you're looking for a bit of hardware as you mentioned last week. What about the rest of you? Are you guys? Do you usually in the box? Are you making reverbs and delays sync to tempo, or are we having fun with it on the side? We'd like to know.
Is there any mileage in using your computer as a pedal board?
I mean, you always talk about using your DAW as a tape reel, right? Eon Link? Yeah, just recording into it as if it was just reel to reel or something, just recording in. Yeah.
Yeah, especially when you want to do something a little bit looser, off the grid.
Yeah.
That'd be an interesting way of doing it. Yeah, completely. That is it for hardware, but I found some freebie software. So we're all a bit potless at the moment. So I found some free stuff. Do you want to have a look?
Yeah, let's do it.
So yeah, two pieces for you this week. Firstly, the Zoom set, which I think is a hell of a name. I love the Zoom set. There is a free version. It's from Audionaut, and there is a free version, and there is a obviously a paid version where you can get some more presets. But lovely, as you can see, it kind of looks like got kind of like a papery vibe, or almost you could say like a lo-fi vibe. And that's exactly what it's for. It's got keys and pads mainly, but there's a few rhythmic stuff in there as well. I've been playing around, wrote a song with it today actually, and yeah, very much. There's a couple of patches which I was thinking, Sunwarper could use that for a bit of synthwave if you wanted to, but mainly lo-fi. This kind of thing here. That is a big change. It's quite dynamic. I'll do one more. Do one more round of one. Yeah.
And that's the free one?
This is the free one. This is all the free one. You can get on there. I think
I'm gonna get
as far as I'm aware, the paid version just has a few more presets. That's all it really has.
Okay. Interesting.
But I mean, I was playing around with it yesterday and today, and I've been enjoying I've been enjoying the presets, and there's so much you can do if you take the presets and then stick an effects chain behind it anyway. So I mean, the sky is really the limit, but it's a very good jumping off point, high quality, and completely bloody free, which is nice.
I like the sound of that.
Yeah. And this second one,
radioactive green on that as well.
Yeah. Very aesthetically pleasing. I mean, matches everything in my studio.
You're not going to miss it. If it's just there on your screen, you know it's up. You know you're going to go for it.
Where is it? Oh, there it is.
Very nice. Yeah. Those, everything there is obviously malleable and change it around and stuff like that.
Can you change the colors?
Maybe with the paid one, you never know.
Yeah. Everybody in the chat, does anyone use this, or was that video convincing enough to grab it? That's I'm gonna grab it after this call. Let us know. It's free. I'm not pulling an Eon Link and being like, yeah, I bought it. He's gonna have like 4 Synclavier regens next week.
One thing I will say is if you go onto the website, they do it through I can't remember the name of the website for now, but they do it through what's it called? I can't remember. It basically goes to a place and it says buy now, but then you have to enter a coupon, so you can buy it for $12. You follow that link, but then you go into the coupon bit and you just type in free, and then it just discounts the entire amount for you, just so you're aware. So it is free. You have to go through a loop or so to get there. Okay. But yeah, it's good for it. It's good for it.
Good to know.
Yeah.
And it's only $12 anyways, just to buy it outright, right?
Yeah.
That's
all these
not bad.
All these little boutique kind of VST companies now, they're so cheap. They are offering it for free. But if you do find these indie ones and you can afford it, go for it. It's good to support them, you know. They're not asking for $200 like Strymon are. So it's always a good thing. Yeah, it's always a good thing. But yeah, secondly, this is a bit more of a public service announcement than anything else, because I believe, unless you're incredibly new to the game, you would have heard of Spitfire Labs, Spitfire Audio. They've got released a new one. Labs is their free selection. See, you can go and pay hundreds of dollars for some very high quality sample based synthesizers and orchestral stuff. But they also have labs, which is completely free, and they send out new ones every so often. And this is a Gaelic Voices, which is really nice choir. Gaelic voice VSTs are usually quite expensive on the grand scheme of things. Or if you want quality, they're generally quite expensive. But check this out. Isn't that nice? Isn't that lush?
And that's a lab. It's a Spitfire
and that's a lab. That's a Spitfire Labs. It's completely free, and it's great. Spitfire are awesome, and it's nice. It's nice to see it. I've been.
True.
I love finding, especially voice ones again. Always using them, but never find any decent ones. So yeah, have that. Enjoy that.
That's sick. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So yeah. Where are we going with that? So, I mean,
I was going to say that last one where you talked about the free and to support artists was a nice segue to Bandcamp, but that's not timed yet. We're not there yet, so we'll hold off.
We will be talking about Bandcamp Friday in a bit. It's this week, isn't it? Bandcamp Friday.
It's Friday.
We've just crossed into November. For those at home watching, we have had a hell of a week in terms of time differences and time zones. We're obviously operating across 3 different time zones, and so getting time here into it has been an interesting one. But yeah, anyway, shall we? That's all about the news. Sunwarper, should we move into the round robin?
Yeah, let's do it. This was, I believe, Eon Lakes.
Well, there was one news article that was going to.
Oh, that's right, the Spotify bit, right, or the streaming bit. Yeah, we should talk about that. Eon Lake, why don't you start it, and Curtis can bring up the article.
Okay.
So, yeah, I was reading an article this week about the music business, and it was mainly from this guy at Universal Music Group, and then I saw this other article that references what he was saying. And talks about.
Just hold on 1 second, Eon Lake. Curtis, can you move it slightly to the left, the screen at all?
I can zoom out.
Yeah, there we go. Perfect. Okay, sorry, Curtis. Eon Lake, go ahead.
So yeah, they were talking about the number of tracks on streaming platforms. You know, there's over 100 million on Apple Music now. Spotify doesn't have that many, but they are getting 100,000 tracks a day.
Yeah.
There is some debate that is building these days about, you know, how this isn't necessarily a good thing. And if you care to scroll down a little bit, this guy at Solution Grange at Universal Music used this as a platform to start, sharing his thoughts, which are essentially that this is ultimately going to become confusing to consumers, and that this is a business model that's going to be hard to sustain. And there's probably some truth to that, in the sense of Spotify obviously need compute resources and storage and so on in data centers to store all this music. 100,000 songs a week. Their costs are going up. There's some interesting information in this article about, you know, what it cost them and how that is increasing over time, and the fact that they feel that this is confusing users, and that the algorithm is guiding people increasingly to low quality content, what he terms low quality content. Now, for anyone who's not quite sure what he means by that, I think he means any music that he hasn't invested in.
Jeez. Yeah, so there is a bias then here.
I think he's got hideous bias in the sense of, you know, I'm spending all this money for all these artists. They're the ones you have to be listening to. All this other stuff can go elsewhere. Obviously, there are business arguments to support some of these views, and you know, it does make you wonder where it's ultimately going to go, because the whole Spotify thing, it can't grow forever unless there are major revolutions in both power and data storage technology. So yeah, it does make you wonder where this is going. It sounds like they're already making an argument for trying to raise the bar of entry, or stem this ocean of new music that is being submitted all the time, that is of course low quality.
In their words.
Non-Taylor Swift low quality stuff, because he does cite her as a recent album as being an example of high quality content that keeps people on these platforms. This is the argument. So it almost sounds like he's worried about his bottom line being disturbed by just so much music that people can't get to the gold that he's put all his money into. I'm being a little bit facetious. There are obviously some real points buried in this, and it's an interesting article. I would recommend reading it. And
we linked it in the chat if anybody wants to check it out.
Yeah, and that led me on to our question this week about this. So how exactly did I phrase it, Curtis?
We've got this here. So does the barrier to entry on digital storefronts need to be raised? Does this stifle new music? Who are the gatekeepers? Are we looking for a more decentralized model in the next evolution of music distribution?
So, I mean, does this mean that, because there's so much new music being produced and submitted and so on, is this something that is not sustainable? Does it mean that we should actually tier music in this way? Should it only be major artists that get a certain amount of plays a month that are allowed to be on the platform and so on? Is that sounded the way that particular individual thought it should go? That they mentioned that 90% of the people submitting music are getting less than 500 plays a month. It's just a waste of time.
I mean, to them that's a waste of time, but I'm sure to the people getting 500 plays, they're amazed that they're getting 500 plays. I mean, that's 500 people listening to your music. Yeah,
and everyone started somewhere, right?
Yeah,
everyone started at zero, and how far it goes is well. That's up to the people out there, isn't it?
Yeah, I think the definition that he's giving for quality is incredibly skewed and biased. And it kind of, while I think they're raising relevant points, it seems to, in my opinion, take away from everything he's saying, because I feel like his premise is already incredibly flawed and biased. I would love to hear from Curtis, though, as you usually don't get to talk first on these round robins. So,
I agree with you in the sense that this is obviously a very biased piece he's coming in here. I think it mentions somewhere in the article that he had a hand. Grange gave the example of Taylor Swift's record-breaking Midnight's album as a high-quality release, and Taylor Swift in this week has hit the top 10.
We're talking about business and money, aren't we?
Yeah, so they're talking purely as a business platform and not as an artistic kind of expression.
But even then, if he has a vested interest in that album, it still just inherently is a flawed premise.
Oh yeah, completely. Yeah. So this is complete. I'm not surprised. It's from a website called musicbusinessworldwide.com. This idea is not coming from a sense of artistic self-expression at all. This is purely monetary. The idea that more people like it, therefore it must be better. Let's face it, that's bullshit. But like the idea that I think the real question is, where does this go? Because there's a good point in the sense that there's only a finite amount of server space, and there's only a finite amount of land which you can build server space on. And unless there is a change, where's it going to go? Now, I can't. The only thing I can see is you can have these package systems: bronze, silver, gold. How much do you want to pay in order to get onto a special server? How is that server routed? Are you going to get it? It's the same way that you get like priority space on Payola for playlists now. It'll be a case of the more you pay, the better stream. Sketchy playlists. Yes. This whole thing is sketchy. Let's face it. This entire thing is sketchy in its own right. But yeah, it'll just be another way of pay to play. Imagine that in the dying days. There's only 300 terabytes or whatever, 300,000 terabytes of data space left in the world. How that's going to be auctioned off to the highest bidder. That's the only way it's going to be.
That's a great start to like a book or a movie. There's this much space left in the world. How does it get auctioned off? Some dystopian cyberpunk world. Yeah. Oh, I see it right there already.
And everyone's making lo-fi at this stage. Everyone's making lo-fi.
And synthwave that's just 4 on the floor and like a pounding arpeggio bass. That's it.
Yeah.
some music-related Hunger Games thing going on. See who gets the last bit of storage.
There's just the three of us with a banana, apple, and a pedge lobbing through each other, just trying to get the last bit of space.
Yeah.
I mean, Shady's got it right, and he goes, "I will shut up in a minute, I promise." I guess we go back to physical formats, and I mean that's I think where Sunwarper comes in, because you do a lot more physical than I do. I don't do much physical. I do mainly digital. I mean, what do you think about that? What are your thoughts on Sunwarper?
I don't know. I mean, you talk about space. There's issues of space with physical too, in a real sense. Like in
That's a good point.
Real tangible sense. Like some people I was reading recently or something were saying like I only buy albums I really, really love on physical because I just don't have the space to put it places and stuff. And I mean, that's a good point too. Maybe it actually was Eon like that said it. I feel like it was during an ADSN. So it might have been you that said it, because I remember someone was saying something like, yeah, I don't have the space. So there's an issue there. I think physicals are really cool and it's a bit more special. There's also, I hate to bring it up, but NFTs and things like that are seemingly coming up, but they've had their little slips lately. Interesting though, on the topic of space in streaming and things like that, I got an email from Amazon that Prime members are now getting access to more music on Amazon Prime or on Amazon Music. So originally, Amazon Music is a separate thing. You don't get it if you pay for Amazon Prime, but you got this like low tier. Yeah, it's very weird. It makes no sense. But you get this low tier version where there's like 2 million songs, which sounds like a lot, but when you really look at what they offer, it's not. But now they're upping it to 100 million songs for Prime members. So I thought that was interesting that you mentioned tiers and things like that. They actually opened up a more, for lack of a better word, beneficial tier for Prime members. Just an interesting little note. But I just, that article, I get what it's saying. It's not coming from the right place. So I'm just not vibing with it. I understand the points, and they're making good points, but the second they bring in these horrible skewed biases where they have vested interests in what they're saying, so this should be listened to. It's like, well, of course you're going to say that. You have a vested interest in it. No. Like where do we draw the line on what's quality, what's not? Somebody that gets 50,000 listeners or something, and if those are just bots, how would we know? We have no way of knowing these things. And what about these smaller artists that are making livings off of their streamings, but they're not huge numbers, they just get decent? Like, is that considered quality, or is it only when you have all 10 of your album songs as the top 10 in the charts?
I mean, yeah, completely. And I feel, again, coming back to what Shady was saying about physical formats, proper decentralization, proper localization. Like, for example, I'm in Prague, right? So I'm a Prague-based musician, right? The globalization in the world and Audionautic, etc., has mean that it doesn't matter where I am, anyone can listen to my music. But 300 years ago, if I was a bard running around Prague with a lute, people would probably know me in Prague and maybe in Benešov, but they wouldn't know me outside of anywhere else in this world. And maybe that's kind of
lute, dude, as well.
That would be nice. Make it a loot, dude. But maybe that's where we're going. Like, again, decentralization, localization. People will know musicians in a very local level because I go out into the streets. Maybe that's what needs to happen in order to make it get by. It makes me think also, was it last week or the week before? We were chatting about creating a story and creating a brand. Was that last week?
Oh, man. I think that
was last week.
Yeah,
last week. Time, man. It's weird.
Yeah, that might have been Neil like was talking about CDs.
Yeah, exactly. Like the idea again, in order to sell that, you're going to need a story. Now, these days, any lo-fi beat maker can have no face, no profile, and get 1 million streams on Spotify. Surely that'll be the end of that. Surely, has to be.
Yeah, we'll see. Yeah, and do you have anything else you want to add about it?
Well, I think it's headed one way, isn't it? I mean, like I said, without revolutions in storage technology and also power, I think they're going to have some interesting decisions to make ultimately about what their service is actually supposed to be, whether it's supposed to be all the music there is or just mainstream music, like the guy says in the article. just the really big selling stuff that most people want to hear, or that he thinks most people want to hear. The stuff that does the biggest numbers. I mean, you know, it's odd. I went a bit with Shady on this in the sense that I thought, okay, well, so we've gone from making lots of copies of something and selling it and everybody having their own copy of it to then there was the file sharing and torrenting.
Napster.
Yeah, it was decentralized, wasn't it? Right. But it was also piracy and nobody was getting paid and so on.
Yeah.
And then, you know, Spotify and Apple Music were like a reaction to that. So that was get all the music, get it together, throw it in a data center and, you know, give people access to it on a subscription basis. It's going to get to the point where that's just not manageable anymore, surely, at some stage. And then they're going to need to make a decision about what it is they're trying to provide, you know, and if they want to provide all kinds of music and interesting music, or if they're just about the numbers and the middle of the road stuff and the, you know, the churn. It'd be interesting to see. Does it mean we move back to a decentralized thing? Does it all have to go in one place and then give people access to it? If you're a musician and you want to share your music with the world, could you host that yourself? And there's a central resource that just links to it. And then it's like file sharing technology or something like that that shares it around. I mean, I haven't got room for all the music in the world. I've got room for mine. You know?
It makes me wonder where, so you're talking about a centralized place where we all have our music.
It's a link to a decentralized copy of the music. You know, it doesn't all have to live in an Apple data center, in a Spotify data center. You know, it could just be you keep the music, you don't upload it anywhere. You hang on to it, but you publish it somehow through an application and an infrastructure and so on, and people can buy it in exactly the same way or stream it, but it's not necessarily all thrown into a big data center and rows and rows and rows of storage.
The only issue with that might be cost per musician.
Yeah.
You know, like the entry basis point for that.
Absolutely. When we have to pay for everything already anyway, from the very word go and all the instruments and everything, you know, everybody's in our pocket for everything. You're quite right. Does it mean you just end up with a load of different services that target certain areas? You know, the underground goes back underground, and, you know, people who are interested in music get to go and seek it out and be pioneers and can be nerdy about it and, you know, and have that sense of pride in discovering things, you know, because not everything can be mainstream. But like you said, you know, those were business arguments. They weren't artistic arguments.
You know, on a business point, though, and I didn't get to read the article. I saw it this morning right before we went live. But did the author or that guy, the main guy, talk about YouTube at all?
I don't think it's mentioned.
No,
it's Google, of course. They're massive. But YouTube, I wonder how many videos which are much bigger than a single tiny MP3 or WAV, how many videos on YouTube go up every single day? And, you know, there's music going up on there. There's all that type of stuff. If he omitted that and was talking about this, it seems to give even more faulty premise. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I thought.
Curtis raised his hand.
In answer to your question, 3.7 million new videos per day.
And how many songs go on Spotify? 100,000?
100,000 per day. So 100,000 per day for Spotify, and then 3.7 million per day to YouTube. Now,
and what's bigger, a video?
That's what I'm saying, or a tiny MP3. That's, you know.
Well, I hope that my MP3s of Curtis are not being uploaded through DistroKid. High quality WAVs. That's the.
Well, you know what I mean, though. Even a WAV is a gig at most, probably. You know, something if it's so. It's the fact that if that's not mentioned, and I know that's slightly, what do you want to say, apples to oranges, I get that, but it's still like Taylor Swift's music videos are being uploaded, and artists are uploading videos every day, and a lot of videos on YouTube are 10, 13, 15, 20 minutes, 4K. I mean, we're talking massive files.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you want the full high quality videos for ours, for example, you can subscribe and catch our clips throughout the week.
There you go.
This is at 720, but the full HD, they get posted throughout the week. So,
yeah, we put 1080p on Spotify too, so we really show it to this guy. We're like, check us out on Apple and Spotify.
Well, I thought they're still streaming. Then you can't stop us streaming.
No, not at all. This is
rich.
It's interesting. I have got just thoughts and just ideas and inspiration for this dystopian future where we're all just like kind of vying for the server space. It's really interesting to me because that's exactly the
Store
way.
everything, can we?
Oh yeah, exactly.
How you do? Let's film it and store it.
I mean, imagine. Can you imagine an Audionautic streaming service where just the roster of, if you're a fan of Audionautic, for example, just the roster, and you go to audionautic.com or something like that, and then you can just stream just our artists, or if you can go even more localized than that, the eonlake.com.
See, but I feel like that's so bottling and just like keeping away from discovery and the beauty of finding new music. Like I'm not. I just it feels like you're just missing out on expanding with different kinds of things and playlists and finding people's influences. Like I love on Spotify, and I have my issues with Spotify, but in terms of the actual listening to music, going to someone's either if they make their own playlist of influences or listeners also listen to, and just seeing what else is out there, or even just like going on Wikipedia and seeing if an artist listed their influences and just finding the influences and going back and tracing how this has progressed in terms of sound and things like that.
Yeah. Totally. I'm not saying you can't do that, but I mean, you could log on to curtis.com and see what I've been listening to,
But could you if it was like a completely separate, decentralized, like
you just link to their website.
And I was thinking,
it's just an extra step.
Everybody publishes, links to their music to the same place. It's just it's not all there. It just redirects you to wherever you need to go.
Okay. So it's like you're following links and down a rabbit hole, basically.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no reason why that couldn't work. I mean, it would be interesting. I feel like if that was something like that was to occur, you'd have to be a lot more invested in the artist and what they're doing to go to that, because that would be like self-created as opposed to
Well, no, I just see it as a service that doesn't actually try and take all of the content and put it in a data center. That kind of leaves the content where it is, but still delivers it to all the people that are interested in it.
What they call like an RSS feed kind of thing for music.
Yeah, RSS.
Yeah, kind of like torrenting, or however it needs to work. Something like that. In essence, a bit like Shady said, going backwards a little step.
Just go to physical. We could just send by mail. Like, here's our influences. This.
But yeah, I think the main point is that guy dissed the algorithm in that article. He properly dissed the algorithm, so he'll be dead by tomorrow. And
yeah, of course,
the Spotify mafia is coming.
Yeah.
He's going to have a fall. He's going to fall out of several windows.
Horse's head in his bed, right?
Don't diss the algorithm. You get away with it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We'd like to know what you guys think. Listen in the chat, watching back, listen to a clip of this that we've made, for example. What are your thoughts? This idea, server space is finite, and this is, where is it going to go? What's the future of this? We're all artists in the modern era. How do you think this is going to affect us? This is
Is what this guy's saying a problem? Are we a problem? This flood.
Are we a problem?
Or is it the man? Or is the man the problem?
Are we confusing consumers?
Should we revert to carrier pigeons to get our music out there? Drop in a pigeon, check it out.
In the name of the modern day carrier pigeon, getting your work out there, let's move to the marketing, shall we? Sunwarper?
I don't know about that transition, but all right. So each week we talk a little bit about marketing. Quick little bit, because Curtis wanted me to cover this and I didn't prepare for it, but Curtis can go to a YouTube channel to show it. But there was an update to the interface or look of YouTube. Don't look confused. You were the one that asked me to talk about it.
Okay. So so it's happened on my phone. It hasn't happened on my browser.
It did actually. When you were on Loop Pop, the subscribe button had changed.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay,
so the subscribe button is no longer red; it's white. And they've just changed a couple other things. The UI and like the likes and dislikes and things. It's all rounded edges, I believe, or something like that. If you want to check, you can look at our like and maybe click that like button. No, there's still all the same stuff, but they've just rounded everything, and everything's a very similar color. There's no like different changes in color, and I think they also changed the what do you want to call it? Like the profile picture that pops up next to your name to a circle. I think it used to be a square. I might be wrong. But yeah, they've just done some small tweaks and stuff. They talked about it a couple weeks ago that they were doing it on the creators. What is it? Creator Insider. It's a YouTube channel that YouTube runs. So yeah.
It's basically becoming TikTok in widescreen.
Well, TikTok just announced that they're doing not ads, but they're doing a creator fund like YouTube Shorts was doing, and now YouTube is making advertising on Shorts. So they're like in this clash. It's a kind of entertaining just to see in this like dystopian corporate battle for our money or something. Yeah, there you go. Just Elon like just sitting at the side drinking wine.
I see the bottle of brandy that's sitting on my shelf. I need a swig. Like, fucking hell. Like,
but it was funny because YouTube did that ads fund, or not ads fund, shorts fund, where if you got like, I know one channel said they got 1 million views on a short, and this is a big 2 million subscriber channel. They got 1 million views on a short and got $100. They were like, for our long form content, that would be like $15,000 or something. So it was tiny anyways. But now after TikTok said, oh, we're making a creator fund where if you're a bigger creator, you get like a portion of this fund for each view. YouTube's like, we're advertising shorts. So now YouTubers get, I think, 45% per ad, whatever the amount is. And then YouTube keeps 55%. So it's nice for YouTube too, I guess. But yeah, so I mean, if you have any interest in just seeing the war of corporate ego and how far they're gonna go, they're just like, they keep just trading blows.
I can't wait until we just have Insta Talk Tube. It's just gonna be ridiculous. Okay. I like that. Tube.
Yeah.
What's going on with Bandcamp Friday?
Yeah, so Bandcamp Friday is this Friday. I think there's one more in December, and I don't know if they're going to stop it in 23 or if they're going to extend it. It was supposed to just be, I think, through 2021 or something. And they kept rolling it out. It's a cool little thing. I'd be curious to hear in the chat if anybody feels like it's become kind of oversaturated or if they still like Bandcamp Friday for what it is. But for those that don't know what it is, on Bandcamp, they waive their fees, which I think is 10 or 15% per sale. They're going to waive that for one day, and it's just a good time to sell. Sorry, I was distracted by that cat.
Steve just decided it's time for a cuddle.
He was like, hey, I like Bandcamp. Let me hear about this. But yeah, so I just wanted to talk about some interesting types of things you can do on Bandcamp Friday. Really quick, Survey Channel. I feel kind of the same as you. I feel it needs to stop personally. It to me kind of has become like the monthly release on Spotify, where it's just like, well, A, it loses that specialness, but B, everyone is now timing it to try to release on Bandcamp Friday, and you just get kind of lost in a sea of noise. That's my personal take. I like what they're doing with it. I think it's cool. But yeah, that's just how I feel. Let me just get to the notes I have. And if anybody has ideas or things they've done that have worked or haven't worked and they want to share it, let us know in the chat and we'll talk about it. But a couple of things you can do: on-demand merch and physicals. So we've talked about this before, but you can do physicals like CDs and even vinyl on demand. So that means nothing is made until an order comes in and you get the money for it to pay for it. Through Kunaki is one of them. There may be other ones, but that's the one we use for Audionautic Records. You can do discounts on music. You can set a discount name like, BC Friday 15, and if someone types that at checkout, they get 15% off, or however much you want to put on either a single release, all of your digital releases separately, so 50% off each. And I think you can do it for physicals too. Do you guys know that? Can you do the discounts for physical?
I believe so, if you're at a certain level or something like that.
Okay.
I know we tried to do it through Audionautic and they wouldn't let us yet.
Yeah, well, there's some. Yeah, it's also the way the PayPals work when you're on a record label. Like if the PayPal goes to the record label PayPal or the artist. And then finally, the last one that I like is, and you can't have releases on a label. It all has to be on your PayPal. That's key for this. To create a full discography discount. So you can set. It's like I've seen some people for Bandcamp Friday set 90% off on their full discography. So if it's however many songs you pay, or albums, you pay $10 and you get all of their released albums. So that's also something. Actually, the one bonus is you could do like a rarities release that you only put up that day and you take it down after. So yeah, do you guys have any you want to add, Jan Lake or Curtis?
I was just saying in the chat there that, you know, it often gets a little bit expensive, and sometimes I have to spread things out a bit. And sometimes I get things a bit later than I'd intended to, just because, you know, there's a lot of good stuff out there, and it's worth listening to. And I have made use of discography offers in the past as well for digital stuff, because I like to, I don't buy everything physical, and I do like to keep up with people. I think our good friend Survey Channel might have done that at one point, had a discography offer. Maybe I got that. Yeah. But yeah, it's all good. I think, you know, it's still a good thing, but I think I like the premise of it. I think what it's becoming is becoming a little bit onerous to some people in some ways. I still think all in all it's a good thing, but it's yeah,
over in the chat, Survey Channel said so much music is missed because people log stuff in wish lists and then forget, and it's cost prohibitive. And we talked about this part last week, I think. He said, I did see Bandcamp is hiring a bunch of interesting positions, engineering and non-engineering. Yeah, we were wondering, like, is this part of the whole Epic buyout where it's leading to something? We'll see. He also said, one thing that bugs me is you can't trigger the discography offers if you release on a label. Yeah, I mentioned that. I do not like that. It's very frustrating. I understand it because it's different PayPals, so I guess, but I wish they could just figure out a way, like the percentage split or something would, you know, or that part would go to the label's PayPal and the rest would go to you. He said for you, Eon, like about his discography, he said he did do it before but can't anymore. Yeah, like I have my most recent releases on Audionautic Records, and then my old ones before we had Audionautic are mine, and I can't do discography. One thing you can do if you have control of the label is you could switch for that day the PayPal to you, or you could ask your label if they'd be willing to do that. I don't know. But I mean, it never hurts to ask. But you could do that. All they have to do is on the Bandcamp, if they switch the PayPal to you and then switch it right back the next day, that would allow you to do the discography. So just a thought, if you have any means of doing that.
Maybe you have to set up a record label of your own. That might be a good way of doing things. That's what we did. So I mean, I've been watching the comments come through the chat as they come through, and it seems like everyone's on the same kind of wavelength when it comes to Bandcamp Friday, to a similar degree.
Bendu said something interesting though that kind of goes back to our Spotify stuff and the physicals. He said, "I'm running out of room for physical releases." Yeah, that's what I think, Eon, like you were talking about that last time. I got a new hard drive though that is 2 terabytes and it's tiny. Yeah, so you can fit a lot of digital songs on that.
Yeah.
Sorry, Curtis.
So chuck all my stuff on there.
Plenty
of room to find that.
Yeah, it's always the way forward. I think what I've seen recently, I've seen again Survey Channel. I've seen do it. I've seen Willibrandt do it. I've seen a couple of people do it as well, where Bandcamp Friday has become about offering extras for your discography.
Yeah, so, like rarities.
Like a rarities or codes or just a reminder that this stuff exists.
Interesting.
So instead of releasing necessarily something new, it's an opportunity or a renewed opportunity to go back through your back catalog, which I think is a really nice touch. If these days it does seem to be that if you release on Bandcamp Friday, it's going into the void. I think we had a video of Screaming Into the Void.
You changed the title. It's coming out on Thursday. What to do for a release besides shouting into the void. It's released.
Maybe I'll put it back. But yeah, and I think that this is kind of where it's at. So like an idea of rejuvenation, kind of seeing where you can get, or maybe did a remix or something like that. Personally, I make it a day. I'd never release on Bandcamp Friday because I just don't do it. But
I purposely avoided it with Radiant Visage. I went around it.
I think that what I do make a point of doing, because there are so many people releasing, I have people on my Twitter feed who I have alerted, so I get a notification every time they tweet. And they usually are good at tweeting about what they've bought on Bandcamp Friday, for example. And I'll go and have a look. Like, I like this, I like that, and I'll use it as an opportunity just to spend a bit of extra time just finding out about what's in the community. All right, see you later. Sorry, Steve decided to leave. The idea that we do this, and it's very intensive, and it's a chance to just stop and just look at what else is going on. And I think that's a very good kind of.
That's a good way to look at it. Yeah. What about you?
I was just musing the idea of giving stuff away on Bandcamp Friday.
Yeah, codes are always a good way to do it.
Just taking your money, have something for free.
Yeah, give it to me. Like,
Yeah.
it's all about spreading out. So yeah.
Yeah, does anyone in the chat have anything that they've tried or like for Bandcamp Friday or dislike? I mean, we all seem to be a little, I don't know if jaded's the right word, but a little turned off by Bandcamp Friday at this point. I still think it's good to at least offer discounts or give, download codes, do something on it because, you never know. You reach one new person, you're getting there. I remember there used to be on Twitter all those Twitter posts like post your Bandcamp Friday and we'll all like listen and check it out. And I don't know if I even see those anymore. Maybe I miss them, but it seems like that whole excitement and enthusiasm around it has kind of changed. And also a lot of bigger artists have gotten in on Bandcamp Friday. So it kind of like, for lack of a better word, got more corporatized and bigger, and then all that stuff.
I think it's an issue of nobody's got that amount of time.
Yeah, it's just a lot going through.
Yeah, that
I think
too.
All of those, even if they wanted to,
Exactly. I mean, survey channel says just need tiny physicals now to compensate. So like mini discs. That's obviously
The
where we're gonna
GameCube
go.
disc.
Yeah.
The GameCube discs. He also said at this point, I've noticed an uptick when I give codes. Extras, as you've said, specifically March is always a good thing for merch. I'm sorry.
Merch.
I'm reading from far away. Merch is always a good thing for Bandcamp Friday. Yeah, I've got my phone has the chat like way down there. And it's like this big. Shady Ridge says the special physical goods are a good idea. Yeah, I mean you could do like we did a one-off vinyl for Future Fade, one day only on Bandcamp Friday, and it was 10. We made it 10, but it was on demand vinyl, so we could have done as many or as little as we wanted. And as the day that or the time that Bandcamp Friday ended, that was the last time you could buy it. And it sold out in like an hour or two when we did it. So there are cool things you can do for Bandcamp Friday. Just check it out and experiment a little.
This is a good idea from Shady, and another good idea is to go have a look at Shady Ridge Records because they got some great merch.
Yeah.
He's been really up in their merch game in this year especially. Always nice to see. So I think that brings it to the end of the marketing section, I believe.
I do believe so.
Again, just to reiterate, if you've got any ideas or if you've got any thoughts, I don't think we've missed, let us know because we're always looking to grow and understand new things.
Yeah, I mean, the whole point of Audionautic is that we're a community where we share ideas and come together and we all learn. As Curtis always says, together we grow. And on that note, I do want to mention our Spotify playlist because it's been growing. We're over 300 followers now. And if you want to check out some really cool, unique music, we've got a lot of our patrons and friends and all that on there. Check it out. And, if you want to submit, you're more than welcome to DM myself at Sunwarper or my handles or Audionautic's Twitter. And we'll check it out and get it on if it fits the playlist. It's mostly chill, but there's beats and things like that. But it helps everyone grow together. So together we grow.
Very much so. Yeah. So with that, I think we'll love you and leave you for this week. Unless Eon Lake, is there anything you'd like to close off with? Have the final words as the audio wizard.
Just got to chug that wine. Finish that wine before we go.
I've got another 10 bottles to get through. I was just liking the way we'd left it on a high note there after the slightly dystopian midsection.
Yeah, we brought it back. It's a roller coaster, but, we came back. That's why you had the wine, though. It got you through that dark part, so you could come out the other end. I
needed a crutch.
It's all about those chemical balances. It's all that we need.
Thanks to everyone in the chat for keeping us company. Anyway, appreciate that.
Yeah.
We like hearing your thoughts.
Yeah, and we appreciate you coming on the different time because I know, as Curtis mentioned, it was a bit of a different time. We'll be back at 11 next week, Pacific. I'll have the live stream scheduled on YouTube so you can see the time that it is for you because I'm not trying that again with the 8 and 7 and 5 and this and that. No, just now that we've got it set and scheduled on YouTube, you can go to youtube.com/audionautics, see it in your time zone, and you're good.
Yeah, very much so. And to reiterate, if you didn't catch the live show, this does get replayed. We do clips, and obviously on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify Podcasts, you can catch this from. I think we're going up on. Are we doing it?
We're doing Saturday as of now. We might be doing Mondays, but if you guys have a preference, I mean, you're watching this live, but anyone in the comments or anything that rewatches these, let us know. On Spotify, I put a question, so I'll put that for the question this week. I also really quick wanted to mention, if you guys have an old phone, this is awesome. And I have it for Logic, too. This is Streamlabs Remote. Like, I can mute us, I can switch scenes and all that, and now I'm using it for Logic, too, to control, like, switching synths and things like that. It's tiny little hack that I found that I was like, this is so cool.
Well, on that note, I will say goodbye. We'll say thank you, and we'll watch as Sunwarper uses his phone to end the transmission.
Yes. I'm going to mute us first because we got to be muted. But thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.